Welcome to another episode of Con-crete University. I am Dean XL Be Free, better known as Daryl L. Lewis. And today we're going to have a special show, so I'm going to switch things up a little bit. This evening's show is about the youth. This is called A Message to the Youth. So I'm going to give you an opportunity right now, 3 to 5 minutes or so. If you have some kind of youth or somebody that's in crisis, the parents of someone who might have a troubled teen or troubled youth, I'll give you an opportunity now to, make a call and possibly get them to tune in because I'm going to just go straight from the heart and give full conversation, hoping I can speak their language with a full conversation for those young adults that again may be in crisis. Now I know that since they have a sometimes based on maybe it could be some kind of chemical imbalance, some kind of mental illness, or just a short attention span. Since this is the case when we're dealing with the youth, this time I'm not going to go into my shout outs or anything like that. We'll say that for next week. There's a lot of people that have contributed to this show, and I've done a lot of things this week that I would like to share with my audience. But this week, something is very serious that should be discussed, and I'm going to channel everything that I usually do as far as an itinerary. So if that's the case, I would like for you to grab any young person that you can possibly grasp hold to that will be able to listen to me for at least 5 to 10 minutes or anything possible that you can get from them, because I'm going to come from the heart and I'm going to keep it real as best I can. Usually you're used to seeing me with the Con-crete University t-shirt on, but today I'm going to wear this shirt because red is a warning sign, and this is a warning to, again, the parents of, the siblings of, the uncles and aunties of any young man or young woman that may be in crisis at this particular moment. So I'm wearing this as a way for you to, whenever you go into the internet or whatever and look up, Con-crete University, if you see the red shirt anytime, not just today, but anytime, then that means that I'm giving a warning and something that should be taken heed to. Now, again, I'm not a prayer book and I'm not the person that knows everything about, what's right and what's wrong. But at this particular moment, from my heart, I truly believe that our youth are in a state of emergency and they're headed to a place where they don't give, no one cares about them, a place where they could just be rounded up and shipped into and warehouse for whatever reason, and maybe not even be a reason. So again, I'll give you a few minutes to grab any person that you can, young person that may need to hear this, and we'll rock with it from after that. Thank you for tuning in, though, however. And maybe next week we'll get back onto the regular scheduled programming, and we will discuss anything that needs to be discussed at that moment. But we will start with our theme music as usual, but just a little different.
Yeah.
Con-crete University 101. Let's get it.
It's Con-crete University. Know before you enroll. Ending up in the penitentiary. Listen up to Dean XL, be free. And you will know before you go. Never have to see how prison can really be. Listen, learn, and practice consistency. This is prison literacy. Yeah. Ooh, oh, oh, ooh, oh, yeah, this is prison literacy. Yeah.
I hope you've rounded somebody up. We'll give you just another second. We'll roll through that one more time, and then we'll get started right in with the real talk about the situation at hand.
It's Con-crete University. Know before you enroll. Ending up in the penitentiary. Listen up to Dean XL, be free. And you will know before you go. Never have to see how prison can really be. Listen, learn, and practice consistency. This is prison literacy. Yeah. Ooh, oh, oh, ooh, oh, yeah, this is prison literacy. Yeah.
So again, we're 4 minutes in, and I hope that you've grabbed somebody by the shoulder to about bring them to the show. Again, it's dedicated to the youth. Basically, when I speak of youth, I'm speaking of anyone that's like 25 and below. And I know that most times in this country, they say once you reach 21, then you're an adult. However, adulthood is pretty much measured by the wisdom that you're able to, put forth and use, and your ability to reason. Sometimes with the things that are going on with the school system or what have you, and other outside influences, our children are not developing at the rate that they possibly should. And many of them are put on chemicals that we believe that will probably advance them, but sometimes it does dumb them down and slows them down. So I want to dedicate this show, even though I said I would give shout outs for, the next time, the next show, but I want to dedicate this special show to a young friend of mine by the name of Isaiah Walters. He's now serving or waiting to be going to go to trial for some juvenile offenses, that have become felonious. And basically, as I go through this, is for any person that might be in crisis. But he's a prime example. We'll maybe get into his story later. Maybe sometime even have him on how something as small as being on the computer could be turned into something felonious and could send you to prison for multiple years. So with that being the case, again, shout out to Isaiah Walters, who's in juvenile right now, and let's continue with the show. So again, in the beginning, I'm saying that I'm speaking to the youth. So I hope that I can speak the language that they can understand. I hope that I can use some of this terminology and some of this slang. But for the adults, one of the things that we must do is bridge the gap between ourselves and them. And one of the ways that you can do that is by the tone of your voice, the way that you speak to them, and being able to speak the language and understand what they understand, as well as being able to bring them to the level of understanding that you have. So one of the first things I want to do before even getting into my spiel or my heartfelt conversation with the young adults is I want to basically give you my history and my line of getting into what I'm getting into, because I wasn't always who I am now. The person that you see right now is not the person that I've always been. So I was, initially born, with two parents, of course, and my parents, were together until I was probably about 6 or 7 years old, which was a great thing because I was raised in a family that was full of love and trust. I was raised in Kansas City, Missouri on 39th Street. As you know, I was 2 blocks from 39th and Prospect. And as you know, from the days of the 70s, for those who can comprehend or go back into the days of the 70s, it was a rough area. I was sent to Catholic school because my family, wanted me to have a better education. My first battles began when I had to wear uniforms and come home and come across that 39th Street, 39th and Prospect bus line. I would get into it with, there was a public school like 2 blocks up called Horseman. But anyway, I don't believe it's still there. I think the building is still there, but it's not there. But those students that went there, that went to public school, for whatever reason, they thought that I was like, preppy, and I was too, straight up, straight down for them. So I would get into fights coming home from school. I mean, it initially started off with me running, and then I would get into fights. So I had to take some, basic training, karate, boxing, things of that nature. And so I began to fight back. And I fought back so much that it got to the point that I didn't like to see other people bullied. Just as low, I don't like to see a system bully our children right now today. I didn't like that. So as I continued, with my life and everything, I didn't have a very bad life. I didn't have to be in the streets. And that's one of the things that you'll learn for many young men that get into this prison situation. After they get back and think about how their life has been going, they begin to realize that, man, I might not have had to do this. I just made some bad decisions, some bad choices. But, my fate or my destiny didn't necessarily have to be prison. So eventually out there in the streets, I did, some of the stuff that most young men. I carried firearms. I distributed substances that weren't supposed to be distributed. And I also stole automobiles. I mean, anything that you can possibly think of that would bring money or even bring a reputation, I was a part of it. So I joined the gang. And once I got into the county jail, that got more and more serious than, what it was basically on the streets. But I was a gang member, and as you know, that can be very vicious, especially back in the 80s and 90s. And from that point on, I went into prison, and I served 35.6 years or 35 and a half years, as I've said, and which continue to say almost shows. I'm saying this not because I want to brag about how much time I did in prison, because if you ask me, I would have rather did 3.5 days versus 35 years. So this is not a bragging situation. But I want to qualify my mind and qualify what I've been through. I didn't have it as rough as many people. I was kind of on the sidelines of the streets, but I still got in there and got dirty when I needed to. But the point of me telling you how much time I did is because I want to save someone and stop them from having to go that route. Again, as I mentioned in one of my other shows, these judges and prosecutors are passing out time to children like it's candy. So this is very serious and it needs immediate attention. We're in a state of emergency with our young, and I'm talking about all across the whole demographic: black, brown, yellow, orange, green, polka dot, whatever race, whatever creed, whatever color that you're thinking about. This message is for you. So I just wanted to let you know that I'm gonna do my best to speak your language, because this is a very serious situation. Again, the reason why I care so much about people, and the reason why I care so much about the youth is because first I went into prison as a teenager, And so the one thing that you have to know about the prison system is they don't care how old you are. Based on whatever crime you commit, they'll put young 15 years old. I've met 16-year-old in prisons with grown men. There was once a time when you had to at least be 25 to go to state prisons, and then that went to 21, and it just continues to go down. They used to have reformatories where you send bad boys or whatever, some boarding schools or possibly juvenile detention. They do their little time there, and once they reach 18, they're out of it. But these day and age, they have a thing called juvenile life, where your young child can go in for an offense and they can keep them inside there until they're 18 and then convict them of something even worse and send them to prison for the rest of their life as a juvenile. So, to any parents that's listening, any person that cares about a young person, know that this is not cool when you are sending them out there with bad examples. When you're telling them, "Oh, it's cool, man. That's cool, man. Little dog, you doing that? That's cool." It's not cool. Once the people get a hold to them and this system, it could do more than just break them mentally. It could do more than break them spiritually. It could break them physically. And so, especially if they're housed with, if you're a young woman and you're housed with older women, you could be taken advantage of, and vice versa. If you're housed with a bunch of grown men and you're only 19 years old or 12 years old, or well, not necessarily 12, but 15 years old, I mean, this is a situation. So I care because I have children, and I don't want my children to go there. And I believe that even though I had to do it through letters and raise them through a visitation room inside a prison, I think that I did well. But anything that you can do to help anyone else, if it's about helping somebody, if you don't want somebody to go through what you're going through, then you have to speak up. If you can't change it with your mouth, change it with your hands. If you can't change it with your hands, at least hate it in your heart. But there's something that has to do with this crisis that's going on. Now, I can't blame the prison system all to itself, because a lot of us, by us not in the communities, not taking advantage of the opportunities that we have to raise young men, whether it be for fear, whether it be just a I don't care attitude. I'm an individual. He had to get his like I got mine. Whatever the case may be, this will eventually lead into your future. Sometimes the decisions of others can affect us. Some little young guys could be on the sidelines and doing something silly amongst themselves, and a stray bullet or something could injure you and your family. So each one, teach one, reach one. Once again, if you have an opportunity to help someone, please do that. And that's why I'm here. So to the young man and the young woman out there, one of the major issues that I have seen as I sat back in the prison cells and watched young men and not necessarily young women, but I've heard stories of the young women because they weren't too far in proximity. But as I watched young men come into this system, and then when I watch social media and play attention to the music and everything that's going on with the culture of the young people these days, the number one issue that I find that they're having issues with is respect and disrespect. So I want to talk a minute about disrespect versus respect. First of all, anytime someone does something that you don't like or does something to you that makes you angry, that doesn't necessarily mean they're disrespectful. Because I've seen grown men try to help younger men and say, hey, little youngster or whatever, let me talk to you about this. You might not be doing this correctly. I might be able to help you do it a better way or whatever. The first thing the young men sometimes hear is, you're trying to disrespect me by telling me something that I don't want to particularly hear at this time. So one thing about disrespect is you have to really pay attention to what's being said versus that it's being said. So I coined a phrase while I was inside of the walls called sensitive gangsters. The reason why I came up with this term is because I was teaching a class once, and I told a young man that he was talking about his family or whatever, and I basically said, you're kind of sensitive about that subject. I didn't mean anything about it. But once he left my class, he went and rounded up a bunch of other little dudes or whatever, and they were going to try to commit harm. They were going to try to harm me because he heard me call him sensitive. I was just basically saying that the man, that was a situation that you hold dear to your heart. Just like when you deal with your family, that's something that you're sensitive about. I would hope that you don't want your family taken advantage of. So when I saw this group of guys forming, pointing my direction, waiting, being with the reputation that I had, and trying to become fearless when it comes to certain dangers, I stepped to them. I went directly to their circle, and I said, "What's the problem?" And the little young man that claims that I disrespect him, what he said to me was, "Hey man, OG, you disrespected me by saying I was sensitive." So the phrase came from the fact that it can be just simple, small words. If they're misunderstood and they're not interpreted for the younger guys and everything, it will be immediately taken as disrespect. Because what he said to me was, I called him a bitch. I never said those words. I didn't say anything, and I didn't even try to downplay it or down talk him by using the term sensitive. I was just saying that something was sensitive to heart. So basically, when we're talking about respect or we're talking about disrespect, a lot of times we don't take enough time, because we have to remember, to young men, we have to remember that your emotions. You guys these days say, man, you getting in your feelings, you in your feelings. Well, feelings sometimes can hurt. We understand that emotions make you cry sometimes. We dig that. But sometimes you have to make sure that what's being said is interpreted correctly. Because again, someone may be trying to help you to alleviate some getting your feelings hurt, or alleviate or help you from not getting into a situation that can hurt you even further and actually hurt your feelings even more. So with this being the case, and we're talking about disrespect, I must say again, there's a difference between being disrespectful and discourteous. If somebody disrespects you, it has to have intent with the young man. Somebody has to intentionally try to hurt your feelings or intentionally try to cause you harm. If somebody does something accidentally, you get upset. You're like, "Damn, gang, I can't believe that you would do something like that," or whatever. And it could have been simply that they just didn't know or they just didn't understand. Now, I hope that I'm not talking too fast and I'm not using too big of a words, but what I want you to understand as a young person, young male and female, don't get so quick to jump into "I've been disrespected," and then you have to go. I be seeing you young ladies out there when you get to turning your hands and moving and whatever stuff. Okay, for that minute, what that is, the way that you act out is because you feel that your feelings have been touched or your feelings have been hurt. So you have to do anything either to draw attention to yourself, to show people that you're bigger than whatever hurt that you're feeling, which may not necessarily be the case, but you're bigger than the hurt that you're feeling. And because you're feeling bad, that makes you feel like you're a victim. And so you think that every person that's seen it or witnessed it that is around you and everything is making fun of you or trying to capitalize or trying to come up on, your pain and your hurt. Now, I'm not saying that your feelings are not real. I'm never going to tell a person how they should feel. If you feel that somebody's hurt you or disrespect you, only thing that I'm asking as an older person, some people, you call us older guys, you call us OGs, you call us old schools, you call us something. I'll take those titles for now if that's what the case may be. But I'm saying to you, before you go off and do something in a split second because your feelings were hurt, maybe you should take the time to sit back and focus on what really is going on. Because as I mentioned in some shows ago, the word pride, if you break the word pride down, it could mean probably reason I die early. There's too many young men and women that are ending up in these cages and being hurt and dying and being paralyzed and made into situations where they have to live in homes because their body's been mangled by weapons or whatever because they had so much pride they felt that someone was disrespecting them and they had to either retaliate or they had to get down right at that particular moment. I'm telling you, real rap, no crap. Sometimes just some words, if words can be something that can trigger you and make you go off and make you trip out to the point that you're willing to lose your life for that, that's not very good. That's kind of a sad state of being. So don't let something that somebody says. We used to have a thing that back in the days when I was coming up, sticks and stones will break your bones, but words will never hurt you. Now, I can't totally agree with that because words can hurt you. I get that. Again, I will never try to tell you how to feel about a situation. If you don't like a person, then just don't like them. Keep it in your heart. Say, I don't like that person. And then ask yourself later why it is that I don't like that person. A lot of times we see ourselves in somebody else, and somebody else may be doing better than what we see ourselves in them. And we get upset, jealous, envious. We get upset with them because they may be doing something that we feel that we cannot do. And we lash out at that person. I don't like him because of the way he dresses, and he may dress better than you. But the thing is, instead of hating that person, I know we use this term loosely and we say it a lot, but instead of hating on that person that you feel envious about, why not connect with that person and try to find out what it is that you can get from him that may be able to strengthen your game? Maybe it may be something that he can tell you to, oh, well, I did this, man. If you got this and did this, you may be able to get that. There's 24 hours in a day. Everything that a person has, if we're talking about material stuff, and even when it comes to knowledge, you have the same amount of time to get what they have that they have. Now, again, I must say that I understand there are enfranchisements, and there are situations where people have a better leg up than other people. So we're not even talking about that. We're just talking about as a person to person. If you feel that there's something that you like about a person or that you're envious about, instead of being upset with that person, don't. My cousin Michael Cheney used to say, "Don't dislike me, get like me." So instead of being upset with the person for something that they may have, then you should try to figure out what it is that they did and get it for yourself. You have the same amount of time that they do. So when we're talking disrespect, once again, the disrespect between young men and young women back to young men is horrible. I can laugh at it if I want to. I listen to music, and I pay attention to some of the stuff say. And again, remember, I'm not saying that I'm perfect. I'm not saying that I've never disrespected a woman. I'm not saying that I've never disrespected another man. I'm not saying any of that. I'm saying that as I got wiser and older and looked back at some of my faults, I was able to correct some of those behaviors so I wouldn't be that person that constantly get my head bumped and getting into all kinds of situations based on my mouth. They say, but before you load your mouth, make sure your brain, before you shoot off your mouth, make sure your brain is loaded. A lot of times we just be shooting blanks, shooting blanks, shooting blanks. On the inside of prison, they call them cell warriors. These are people that are talk crazy, talk tough, talk all that. But then when it's time to show and prove, when it's really time to get down, if that's what you truly want to do, all that bark is bigger than their bite. There's nothing really happening. So if you're a person that really doesn't want drama, watch your mouth. Make sure you don't say things that create drama. Because again, if you think about drama all the time, if you think about, being out there in the world and getting into this and getting into that, if you think about all that time, trust and believe the way the world is set up, the universe is set up, you will draw that into your circle. You will draw that to you. So the best thing for you to do is try to think of things that are more peaceful. People always say F peace. We don't care about peace and all that kind of stuff. But truthfully, peace is much better than havoc. If you're in the chaos and confusion and fussing and fighting and all that, maybe you like that and enjoy that because you don't have any other way to understand peace. And I can understand that too. You can't have anything that you've never been given. If you've not been put in a peaceful environment, if you've not been put in a peaceful school, if you've not been put into a family that has any kind of peace, then peace seems foreign to you. It seems like it's something that you get. But let me get back to the young people again. Get back to the young people again. I told you why I cared. So your life, if you're talking about respect, the number one thing that you should respect as a young person is your own life. So that means that anything that you can possibly come up with, whether it be some gang affiliation stuff, whether it just be, out there hanging out, kicking it, whether it be being a warrior on top of social media or whatever, if it's something that can cost you your life, you have to value your life enough to say, I can walk away from that. I'm not going to be a part of that. I'm not going to do that. Because the truth of the matter is there's stuff that decisions that we make that can not only be life changing, but that can put you in a place where your life is not where you're not in control of anything or not very many of the decisions that you make. And that's what I'm trying to prevent or trying to help a person to be not going apart, be a part of. So again, as a young person, think about what it is when somebody said where you think that somebody's disrespecting you. Just think about it because it might not be disrespect. I clearly did not disrespect that young man when I used the word sensitive. But if sensitive, if words can move you and can hurt you, you can be controlled about anything in the life. If I can just say I can run faster than you and that hurts your feelings and upsets you, then maybe you are a sensitive gangster. Maybe there's something about you that you need to work on to make your armor a little stronger so that you don't have to be offended every time someone says something or does something to you. Now, please understand me again. I'm not ever saying don't defend yourself. If someone is, trying to take advantage of you, if someone is saying mean things to you, and when it's talking about the mean things, you can just say, okay, that's good. That's cool how you feel. I'm out. I don't care about you feeling like that. It's cool and leave. But don't keep throwing gas on the fire. Don't keep throwing fire on the gas. Because a lot of times there could be a small situation. Two people get to arguing back and forth. And the next thing you know, violence erupts and then people were hurt and harmed. Remember, violence doesn't care about nobody. And I don't care how big or how tough you are. It can reach you. But if you can do things with your mouth and your hands and make sure that you try to have the thoughts of wanting to be peaceful, then that's what you'll draw into you. Now I know there was somebody will probably step up and say later on everything, peace, man, F peace. Peace is for cowards, peace is for soft people. It takes a very strong person to have someone to talk bad to them or to disrespect them even, and for them to be able to walk away. I ain't necessarily saying you got to turn your back and walk away. You got to watch everybody. I'm not trying to give you that peace. I'm not trying to say necessarily that you should just allow anybody to run over you. You should not do that. But at the same time, I'm saying make sure that you think before you act, think before you respond. See, reacting and responding. Some people just react, whatever if I can move you by that, I'll tell you another quick situation for the young people. When I was on the inside, I had a homeboy. I told you I was gang affiliated at one time. And so I had a homeboy that was a hothead and would get us in trouble all of the time. He was always banging, always tripping, always tripping. Matter of fact, one of his names that we called him was Set Trip because he was always tripping. But anyway, with this being the case, being an older guy that was inside of this institution, I sent another little guy and I said, hey, go to this man, stand in front of his house and just say it's in front of his cell and just say a bunch of disrespectful stuff and see what happens. So he went and said some disrespectful stuff. This guy cussed and fussed and beat the door. He said, let me out. I'm going to kill everybody, whatever. So when he was released and came out of his cell, he ran around the corner and there was a whole group of us standing there waiting, a group of us that he could not beat. So because he felt so disrespected and ran head first into a situation that could have had his life taken away from him, he had to learn the lesson is be careful of what you call disrespect, and be careful of how you feel about yourself being disrespected. So I won't go any further on the disrespect, but to the young people again, make sure that whatever it is that's happening with you, if you feel disrespected, respect your own life more than whatever somebody else disrespect. If someone's disrespecting you, apparently they don't care about you. Apparently they don't. And so why would you allow somebody that doesn't care about you put your life in a situation where you could be in a situation where you don't basically care about your own life, and your own life could be taken. So again, don't let someone disrespect you to the point where you want to disrespect yourself by putting your life at risk because of some words or because of someone says something. And if it's a material thing, you can find out another way to get it. I understand. I don't want to be robbed. I don't want to be taken advantage like nobody else. But material things, don't put your life on the line for some materials, even if it's money. You can ask for it back. You can say, hey, could you give me my money back? If it gets to a point where some violence is going to go, you should have known beforehand not to give this person whatever it is that you gave to them or loaned to them or whatever, that they was a disrespectful person. Final time I'll say this. Do not allow yourself to allow someone disrespecting you to make you disrespect yourself. Don't disrespect yourself and stop loving and respecting yourself because of somebody else's doings. Please remember that. Another thing I want to I want to speak about with regards to the whole disrespect. I said I was going to end it, but the male female thing back and forth, male female, that there's never going to be a time when there's not men and women or boys and girls on the planet. So you can't eliminate all of us. All the women can't and girls can't get rid of all the men, all the girls. You can't do it. So what I'm saying to you is there has to be some kind of medium where you can get along. There's many young juvenile men that have gone to, young men have gone to juvenile places and never even have an opportunity to even be with the girl. And the major reason was because they were so busy hanging out with their homeboys and their friends, their twin, gang, hanging out with those guys, that by the time they realized what was going on and how beautiful a girl could be, they had already disrespected so many of them, and then they get to prison and they have to sit back and wish. Now, I'm not advocating, early sexual prowess. I'm not trying to do that at all, but I'm saying there's more to boys and girls, that you have more similarities, more things that's alike about you than that are differences. But many times in the environment that we live in and the time that we live in, the focus is on finding the differences. Instead of trying to hate, try to love. Now, I know love is a strong word. So, man, I don't love people and all that, because you get love, you get your feelings hurt. Well, learn people. Some of the times you young men have to learn how to have conversations. Sometimes you young women have to learn how to have conversations. And so instead of playing video games and being out there, find out the newest trend and the newest fad that's going on social media, try to understand how to engage with people. Because, again, people are not as bad as we make them out to be, but you can make people bad as you think they can be, by your mouth and by some of your actions. So, again, the whole boy to girl to boy, you kind of got to work on that, because you're just respecting each other so much to the point where, it's natural for boys and girls to be together, but you're bridging the gap, messing up the gap so bad that it's just incredibly, furious. It makes me furious sometimes to see how bad young boys disrespect young girls and vice versa. I'm not trying to let the girls off. I've seen you do some on social media. I've seen you do some crazy things to some young men. So just be careful. If you respect yourself, you'll learn how to respect others. Going back to video games in spare time, be careful of what you watch and be careful what you put on the internet. I just recently learned from a historian brother friend of mine by the name of Eric Stafford. He just shared with me about drill music. He said, man, you're hip to drill music these youngsters are listening to. So, of course, I went and researched. To find out drill music. I'm not going to say thumbs up or thumbs down to drill music, because I don't want to ever slander anybody's art or art form. However, if you're listening to some music and some music is telling you or promoting for you to go out and be violent, and then you go out and be violent and you hurt others, and then you go and post that on social media, I'd hate to say it, and no disrespect if this disrespects you, but it's what it is. That's foolism. Because what you put on social media, get likes and get views and get people love. This is the very same thing that the system pays attention to. They'll listen to you, they watch your show, they watch what you do out there and everything, and they build a profile. We got this dude on Facebook right here showing a whole bunch of money, and he doesn't have a job. We got a bunch of young ladies out here, they doing all kind of, sexual stuff or whatever with their dances and everything. And then when something seriously a serious violation of your person happens and you go before a court, they can say, well, look, she was dancing this way, she was wearing this kind of clothes, she was acting this way, she was asking for that. So instead of us giving the person that did the violent and the mean things to her, can't say certain terms, but the mean things to her, we'll just give them a slap on the wrist because apparently she invited that. This is the type of system that we're talking about. I'm not saying that that's right. I'm definitely not saying that's right. But be careful of how you act and what you put on that social media. Social media can be a tool, no doubt, but it's called the World Wide Web. It can grab you and pull you in just like a web, a web uses a spider. It can pull you inside of that. And once you get in there and you put negative stuff about yourself on there and everything, they can go into all different type of clouds and pull that stuff out. Another thing I want to pay attention to is the tattoos. Again, I never real just disrespect someone's art form. Art for art form is one of the beautiful ways of expression. When you're creating something, everything, that's one of the languages of the creator himself. So him or herself, however you choose to. But that's an expression that you must pay attention to. So if you're into art and you like putting art all over your body, that's great. But if you're a young person and you don't realize that someday you may have to get a job, someday you might want to go to college or military, and I'm not saying they don't have college students that don't have, full sleeves and tattoos. But for a person that's an employer and they're trying to run a clean and respectable business, if they see those tattoos, many days, I mean, it's changed a lot now, but in many days, you won't get hired based on you having tattoos all over your face. What happens when you are old enough to start having children and you have children and trying to raise a family and your young child has to take you to a parent teacher conference or one of their plays or something like that, and here you are full with these tattoos on your face. Again, I'm not against tattoos. I'm not saying that you should do. I mean, you make up your own mind, but just think there's certain things that we do in the street culture that once we decide to translate and go into some other type of culture, maybe you want to grow up and make a change. Life is about change. Everything is ever evolving and ever changing. Change is inevitable, but growth is optional, meaning that you're going to always change. But can you grow from the changes that are being made? And that's one of the things that happens in prison. You can go inside of a prison, like I've said before, and do absolutely nothing. Just because the prison changes and the times changes, can you grow into something bigger and better than what that prison has to offer? So again, to the young men and young women, be careful of what you put on there. Another thing I want to say about social media, they have a thing called terroristic threats. What that means is you can threaten people over social media, and the feds even can catch you and pick you up and put you in jail for threatening someone. So just for instance, you're a gamer and you're playing games and you say stuff like, those words that I can't say, I'll murk you, you do all this kind of stuff, and that's being recorded. And then that person that you're playing gun game with mysteriously that has nothing to do with you is off or their life they become unalive. If something like that is to happen, they can use what's called a digital footprint and they can go back and they can say, well, you said right here on this date, this date, this date, this date, this date that you would unalive this person. And it could very well be something about unaliving on the video game and not necessarily that you meant that in truth. So with this being the case, make sure that when you're playing those video games, I'm not really into video games like that, but I know that people get hyper. They take this into like their real life. Your real life is not a video game. Real life is real. So remember, as you're playing those games and you listen to that minute, know what reality is. Know that the consequences of what could happen to you by the decision that you made can be lifelong and long lasting. I will get to some comments in a second. So this another what else was it I needed to discuss? Okay, I know that you guys use the younger generation, whatever, use the term twin. So when you say the word twin and everything, what comes to mind is a brother or a sister or a sibling of somebody that we was born pretty much at the same time, twins. But I come to realize that a twin is a person who gets down like you, who moves like you, who does stuff like you. Trust and believe there are so many young men and so many young women that go to juvenile and go to prison, and that person that they call twin, once they get locked up, twin ain't there no more. It's solo dolo. There's no more twin. Twin is out still having this fun. He been hooked up with another twin. They're doing their thing and they don't look back. If I could count on hands how many brothers that I knew and sisters that I knew that I was out there in the streets with that followed me once I got in prison, out of the few that, out of the many that I knew, I could count probably less than what's on my hand of those who stayed with me during my bid and who helped me to get through my bid. It's just terrible. So be careful of who you hang with and be careful of who you call your friends. If a friend is a person that is willing to help you. If you're having a bad day or you're feeling sensitive or you're in your feelings or whatever, If you when your friend come to you and say, "Oh man, that stuff that you talking about, you got your feelings hurt and everything. You acting like a girl, whatever. I ain't gonna deal with that. I don't want to talk about that. Man, let's go do something different." If you have a person that's like that, is not really trying to sit back and help you to get through whatever problem it is that you're having. If that's not happening, then it's probably not truthfully a twin to you. It's probably not truthfully your friend. And real again, this is no cap. I'm not trying to tell you don't like the little guys that hang out with, because I mean everybody needs to some kind of associate. Everybody, we're social people. Everybody wants somebody to talk to. Everybody wants to, somebody they can hang with and be with. But I'm saying make sure that the hanging and the hanging out and being with is not something that can be detrimental to your life, meaning something that can't get you sent to juvenile or have you disrespecting yourself and your family. And if one of your friends allows you to do that, again, he's probably not your twin. He's probably not your friend. One thing about real twins in real life, if something is hurting with one twin, sometimes it hurts with the other twin. In many cases, they feel what the other one feels. If a person's not feeling you, if they can't feel what it is that you're feeling, they're probably not your twin. And so when it comes to gang, I know that we say gang, and you use it, in many different ways that you gang. But when you get inside, if the unfortunate thing happens and you have to go inside of juvenile, and I'm just talking juvenile, I'm not even talking about the big prison. The gang situation is even more in most cases worse than it is on the streets, because when you're on the streets and when you're with your buddies, you're with your friend, your neighborhood, your block, that's there. So the people that you may be into it with, funking with, as you call it, maybe somewhere way across the street, across the town or whatever. We don't get around with them street dudes, and they don't get around with the 40s and 50s and 80s, whatever the case may be. When you get inside that confinement, it ain't no running unless you want to go to protective custody, what they call Punk City. That's all day long. You can't get away from your enemies. You can't get away from y'all. It's either I hurt you or you hurt me, and if we don't hurt each other too bad, then maybe we'll hurt each other again the next day. So when you talking this gang stuff, and you represent, especially if you represent the block, just a small. Now I'm talking about a local thing. When you get inside, you'll probably get eaten up, because if you don't have some of your local guys there with you, that means you'll be there by yourself. So be careful about the words that you use. Be careful about how you explode when people say stuff about you that may seem like it's being disrespectful. Just be careful about those things. That's all, because even juvenile is not no joke. So again, when we're talking about, I know they have the term YN. I refuse to call young brothers and young sisters, young men and young women YNs, because if you look at what the word really means, you're not that. You're much more valuable than that. Even if you tough, you think you hard and tough or whatever, that's great. But you have to be careful what you call yourself. And you have to be careful what you allow other people to call you. And I know that sometimes I can say something that may be seemingly disrespectful to a young man, and I say it, then it's very wrong. But his homeboys can say it, the very same thing I said, and it's not, disrespect. So the point that I want to make, and I keep, trying to reiterate stuff and over, because I understand the audience that I hope that I'm speaking to right now. But don't allow somebody. The worst thing that you can be known as is a fool. They used to have a saying also that says, "It's better to be thought of as a fool than to open your mouth and remove all doubt." What that means is, if people think about bad stuff about you, they can think about bad stuff about you all they want. Just don't act the part of what they try to say you are. If somebody says you a dummy, don't do dumb stuff. Not that you're trying to live for the other people. Live your life, be who you're supposed to be, but know who you truly are. If you really are a smart person and is just quiet, and someone comes to you and says he's a dummy, you don't never say that he's a dummy. Why would you just start, tripping out, hollering, making a bunch of dang noise and everything, and become the very thing that they said about you? So don't allow somebody to, my grandfather used to say, "Don't nobody choose your straight. Let anyone choose your shade tree." Meaning, if you're trying to be comfortable, don't let nobody get to choose your comfort for you. Choose that for yourself. But you have to understand what you like before. And you can't understand what you like if, as long as you're steady, playing video games, as long as you're doing other stuff that's on the outside. You're not focusing on you. You're just focusing on what's going on, being in somebody's business, trying to find out. I've met so many men that could sit back and, young men that can sit back and tell you everything that's going on, whether it be on social media, TV shows, movies. They could tell you all the stuff, man. Such and such did this. What did you know that? And these are celebrities that they've never met and may never meet. They can tell you everything about their life. But then if you get them in the corner and say, "Hey, man, tell me some stuff about you," that's disrespectful. Man, I can't believe you asked me something about me. You know everything about everybody else and everybody else's business. But if I ask you about you, you don't have anything to say. So this is a sad state. And not only am I speaking to the young people, I'm also speaking to those who are in charge of, who care about young people. You have to give the young people a chance. The reason why that we have some of the gap that we do is because you're not truly showing them that you care. You're just giving instructions and orders, and and barking, and maybe even, like as they say, disrespect. You may be saying something that harms them. We talked before, when we're talking about each one, teach one, reach one. In order to reach somebody, they have to know that you care about them. Just teaching somebody anything can do that. A stop sign, like I said before, can teach you something, teach you to stop right there. But you have to have the care and compassion when you're talking to these young people. And just like the young people, you have to have care and compassion for yourself in order to be able to listen to somebody. If a man tells you that the road is about to end, and you driving your fresh, brand new, whatever car it is, and some old guy that may even be a bum comes say, "Hey man, you don't want to go around that road? The roads will end." And you say, "Man, I don't want to hear that stuff." And your brand new car with your big wheels on it and all that, and you drive and you fall off this cliff and everything. Then who's the fool? Was it the old man, or was it the old person that's trying to give you direction and understanding, or was it you? So young people, please understand that everybody that tries to tell you, something, tries to tell you something, try to steer you in the right direction or teach you something, they're not your enemy. They're not out to just try to hurt you. Another thing we want to discuss, I want to discuss, which goes into the whole respect and disrespect thing, is anger. Don't allow yourself to be angry over everything. I understand that it takes discipline. You have to say, hey, but there's a period of time, especially for you, who are in groups, crews, street fraternities or whatever. That one of the first things they do is try to check to see how tough and how strong you are. So if you're getting into situations, and all I can do is just say, "Oh, you ugly," and that messes up your whole thing, messes up your whole anger. It makes you, again, I've said it and I'm repeating everything. Getting angry over some stuff sometimes is a waste of energy. You don't wasted so much energy. There's so much stuff that you could have possibly done throughout that day to better your condition, but you was too busy focusing on other people being in their business and want to be upset. Sometimes I had a term was given to me years and years ago and everything when I was in this state. A guy called me a static addict. He said, "Man, you a static addict. All you do is look for static all day long. You trying to find somebody to trip with." Static. Well, that's because I was hurt, not because anybody did anything to me. It's because in the county jail days or whatever, my feelings were so hurt because I knew I didn't want to be in prison. I didn't know I wanted to be in jail, and I knew that was something that I could have avoided if I would have made the right decisions. But in order to make the right decisions, you got to take some time to think, young man, young woman. You got to think about stuff. Thinking don't cost you nothing. The more that you know, the less you'll owe. The more that you know, the less you'll owe. The more that you know, the less you'll owe. What that means is the more information that you got that pertains to yourself, you'll put yourself in a position and situation where if you really truly want to help yourself, stuff will come to you to help you help yourself. Trust and believe that. But if you don't believe that, if you think everything is all bad all the time, it can't be anything but all bad all the time. So I guess that's pretty much what I have to say. I just want you to know that any fun or anything that you're doing out there on the streets that you like, kicking, that you really embrace, something that you really truly like, trust and believe, if they do have it on the inside of juvenile, or if they do have it inside of prison, it won't be to the same extent that you had it out there. So don't give up your fun and your enjoyment and the stuff that you like to do on the outside, whether it's being with your family, talking to your little brothers and sisters, whether it's playing sports, whatever the case may be. Don't give that up. Don't give that up by getting yourself in situations where you have to go to a place and you won't be able to have any of that. It's okay. I know that people think that it's a coward. You're a coward if you want to do the right thing, but it's all right to be all right. It's okay to do the right thing. Forget anybody who's telling you, "Man, let's go hard. You got to have hard." Why do you want to have a hard life? Why? Life is very beautiful. It's very precious. And if you were to speak to men that have come out of the prison situation, they'll tell you, man, it's nothing worth going back to prison for. I don't care if it's money. I don't care if it's a girlfriend. I don't care if it's, just for reputation, just for fame. It's not worth it. I met a guy right before I got out. There was a young fella that clearly didn't probably need to be inside of a prison cell, especially not in the same cell with me. And he told me that he wanted to boost his rap career. He came out of a small little town. And so he felt that if somebody asked him as a rapper, if he was to ever do an interview, if he did, rap that good or whatever, and got interviewed and he had to say where he was from, that would make people look down on him because he was from a small town. So he chose to do burglaries and robberies and everything to catch a case to come to prison so that when he got out and did his rap music, he could ever say, "Yeah, I've been to the joint." Is that foolish or is that not foolish? So if you think that that's foolish, then try not to do anything that can lead you to that place. I have a few suggestions before I go because we're about finding solutions on this Con-crete University show. If there's anything that I can offer you or elders or whoever to try to help this situation, I will do that. One of the things that I'm asking for the young people to do is, ask for help. if you get into something that, whether it's like a immediate situation, or if it's something that you can see that might be a problem later on, whether it be with your family, whether it be with maybe a work project you want to do, or maybe if it's just somebody's bullying you or bothering you, don't be afraid to ask. They used to say when I was going to school, the only dumb question is the one that's not asked. If you don't ask somebody for help, how do you know? But you can't ask somebody for help if you're angry all the time. If you're always mean mugging, you're always fussing, and you come to somebody that you don't, know if they care about you or not. You need to have that. And I'm not going to ever tell you what to do, but I'm giving you suggestions. I'm saying reach out. Reach out. They have organizations, they got coaches, they got mentors, they got all kinds of stuff. And you could probably find somebody in your neighborhood. You can watch and tell who's good and who's not. And hey, man, you're Mr. Smith, whatever. I'm having problems trying to get my bike fixed or whatever the case may be, trying to do this. I'm trying to get a job to save money for the summer, whatever the case may be. But you have to ask people. But it's difficult to ask somebody if all you put off is anger. If you're showing that you're mad all the time, it's different. I understand school. Sometimes school is like, a place that you want to be. To some young men and some young women, going to school is like prison. I see you with your backpacks on. I see you out there, doing your thing or whatever, your backpacks going to school, only to get there and get into fights and arguments or whatever. Now, again, this is not all across the board. I'm not saying all young people have these issues, but I have friends that are principals and, go to school. And some of the time, your only reason for going to school is to get into trouble. If you apply yourself and listen to what's being taught, you can use that information later. Trust and believe. I'm one of the very prime examples. I had teachers all the time, and I'm talking about in the house and outside the house, that were telling me stuff, and I didn't want to hear that stuff because I'm going to do it all by myself. I know what I'm doing. I'm angry. I can just say, whatever I want to say and do whatever I want to do. But years later, after I got inside that prison cell, all those things that people were trying to do to help me and tell me to help me, I started to remember those things. And once I started to remember those things, I realized, and I'm not trying to call anybody a fool, but don't be a fool. I realized how foolish I was because I didn't listen previously. So we're going to get to some questions and answers, but my final note is just respect yourself. Don't worry about the disrespect that others may or may not be giving towards you. If you respect yourself and you value yourself enough, you won't make a fool out of your family by embarrassing them by coming to jail, coming to prison. You won't waste the money that it takes to go to jail and to go to prison, and you won't embarrass yourself. It's so funny how you say, I don't want somebody to disrespect me, but you will turn around and disrespect yourself, embarrass yourself, and put yourself in a position where you won't be respected. There's not very much respect in those places. And as far as earning respect, you can earn respect amongst your peers all day long. But when it comes to the people who open and lock and close the doors all day long, they don't have to give you respect. So let's get some questions and answers in here. I do appreciate you allowing me to go off script for those of you who are, my supporters or what have you. But it just was on my heart and everything, that, somebody needs to really reach out and put their arms around our youth, because our youth are the ones that are coming, inside these prisons, and they're getting in there and they're even more confused and they're causing even more problems. But if you're not willing to put yourself out on the line and everything to try to tell, one other quick thing, it just used to amaze me how, in my generation, we would fight and unalive people for the color of a flag. But that rag and that flag initially was used to blow boogers in. So we was willing to die and fight and kill, not kill, but unalive people for the colors that's on a booger rag. But then now that we're older, when it comes time to try to help a youth that might be going down the same direction, the lessons that we've already passed, we want to put our neck on the line, man. We don't want to care about them little dudes. They ain't trying to listen. They ain't, but enough. Well, until they tell you that they're not trying to listen and you tried every strategy you can, don't give up on them. People didn't give up on us. So let me roll to this comments over here and see what we have. Again, like I said, I do greatly appreciate. I've done something wrong. I can see I messed up something already. Oh man, I messed up something already. Okay, so I'll start here at the top again. Brother. Okay, Brother Sherman, I see you there. I appreciate you and everything. Oh, lottie dottie, that's great. It says the preachers and the teacher combined combination of greatness. It says it ain't begging if the room is full of people wanting to see you win. That's right. Again, we said before, if somebody wants you to win, they'll help contribute to your winning. We never think about the consequences until it's done, and you in the position. When you're in the position and know the situation, because it becomes real. But winning is helping. And so this is pretty much a statement. Winning is helping. Follow your footsteps like I was there with you. You did 35 years, I did 38 years, and it was a struggle. But everybody, I can't get that all that because I'm not scrolling. It messes up. But everybody didn't and weren't trying to help those who ain't there yet. I apologize. I mean apologies, and I'm proud of you, bro. Okay, great. This is from a big brother Sherman, right? Charles Jones, let's see you. Yeah, yeah. I'm trying to get it. Tell it like it is, bro. That's prevalent. Robert Ransburg says that's prevalent with young people today being disrespected. Nice way of making the connection. And there goes my principal friend. I see you, principal friend. Linda Wilson. That's right. Great advice. And again, I'm not saying these things to be like on a pedestal or trying to like say, look what I can say, look what I can do. Again, like we said before, no one truly cares how much you know until they know how much you care. I would rather show somebody that I care about them and I appreciate them as a human being than trying to brag and boast about I know some big words and I might know some things. So definitely it's not about that, right? It says, speak about Robert Ransburg again, who was a coach and a person that was a mentor to me. As I was growing up, he said, speak about how parents can help their young people in this area. Many times young people play out the actions of their parents. Then when their children are in prison, the parents want to blame everybody but themselves. And this is very true. And I'm going to this is like I said, the next time you see me wearing this shirt right here, it'll be a warning, and that warning will probably be to parents and to those of the upper ages, because again, children from the time that they come out of the womb all the way into the tomb, from the womb to the tomb, from the cradle to the grave, they pay attention to what adults do. And so when they see some slacking in your walk, they see some buckle in your walk, they take account of that. But again, for the young men and young women, understand this: no one's asking you to be perfect, and no one that you come in contact will probably be perfect. So you can have a man that can teach you so much, and I've been a part of this too. And you can see them make one mistake or do something incorrect, and you say, "Oh, he was fake. He was fake. He was fake." That just might mean he wasn't strong in that area. If I'm good at math and you good at spelling, but I can't spell, does that mean my math is not good anymore? So just because you see somebody that might be helpful and you can tear in their heart that they're trying to reach out to you and help you, don't take their guidance until you see them mess up and then say, he wasn't real, he was faking the phone, he wasn't true, because that's not always necessarily true. Again, maybe he wasn't weak in that area. He wasn't strong in that area. Artist Robert Jr. says, how do we find those steps in the center of anger and frustration? I truly, again, life is frustrating. There's going to be all type of times that you become angry. And a lot of the times those are tests. Tests are sent to you to see how you're doing. When we get out in the streets, whether you're under, the gang affiliation, under an OG, or just a big homie in the neighborhood, tests is going to come. They're going to test you. We'll go to school and we won't want to be tested. I don't want to take no test today, so I'll just drop it. I'm not doing that. But when you get out in the streets is for real. There's tests, all different type of tests. And I'm not even talking about from law enforcement to go with tests. So basically, we pick and choose where we want to be tested at. But the entire thing about life is about making decisions. We wake up every single day in order to face the challenges of some type of decision. And the strong ones are those who realize that you don't fail until you give up. When you say, okay, this is what's going on, I'm frustrated, I'm angry, sometimes you just got to take a step back and breathe, because you can run headlong, you can run and be angry, you want to fight everything. Like I did in one of my reels, if you pay attention, I've seen guys inside of prison, they get so mad and so angry and so frustrated that they punch the bars. The bars is undefeated. I've seen some really tough guys in prison. I'm talking about weightlifters, dudes that eat iron, everything. I ain't seen nobody, no person. And if you brothers that was incarcerated can tell me of a story where you seen somebody do that. I've seen somebody break some handcuffs, but I ain't never ever seen nobody whip the steel bar. So frustration is an issue, and sometimes you may have to take anger management. They got that class in there all day long to try to cut down on your anger, because anger, especially when you think you're disrespected, it can lead to a life sentence in prison. It can lead to you never ever going home. I got mad today and I did something out of anger, a fit and rage, and now I'm gone. So I'm just asking for the people that get to that way, just breathe. You have to try to slow down and breathe. Everything is not as bad as we think it is. And I understand that when you're in the moment of something, you think this is catastrophe, this is bad, everything is going, the world is closing in on me, it's rough and all that. But then months later, after you didn't got that, you say, oh man, I was tripping at that particular time, but That wasn't nothing. And I remind you as I remind myself, I get in situations where I start having anxiety and say, hey, man, I'm not going to make it through this one. But then I calm down. My father always tells me, say, look, son, man, you've been through a lot of stuff. It's going to take time for you to get past some of that ring rust. It's going to take time for you to get to where you need to go. Same way with my mother. I have a great praying mother and stuff, but they have to understand, and they do understand that, going through that situation and then coming out, a lot of stuff is going to frustrate you, especially you're in a big world that you don't understand. So back to artist Swafford says, I mean, that's in that I mean the instances and cases are caught. The instance cases are caught within the moment, blind passion. That's right. Anything, okay, reasons or elevator pitch can challenge to be blind. So yes, sir, we discussed that. We discussed that. We discussed that. It's not an institution of college, a place to show how to think. That's right. Well, see, that's another thing too. A lot of times we're trying to teach people what to think. We're trying to teach the young. You should think this way. You should think this way, but not taking them through the conceptualize of how you're supposed to think. How do you come up if you got A, B, C, and D? How do you get from there to X, Y, and Z? How do you do that? We just assume that they should know how to do stuff. So we say you just got to think this way. You got to think that you get each person, it's not a one size fit all. I will never stop saying that. Sometimes when you care about a person, you need to find out how to help them through those challenges and teach them how to think. It goes back to the whole, fishing thing. If I give a man a sandwich, he eats for a day. But if I teach him how to fish, he can eat for a lifetime. So it's about how to think. How do you think and make things happen? It's difficult to do those things. Damon Walker, see you low top. What we must first understand is respect is not something you are born with. With its learned behavior, each one teach one. That's right. You're not born with it. But again, if you know who you are and you're trying to, be the best person that you can be, it's difficult to be disrespected. People usually disrespect when they disrespect other people. They find fault or they find jealousy within that person that they're seeking to victimize. So hey, you come to pushing your little garbage off on me because you having a bad day and all that kind. I refuse that. Some of our other folks say, I rebuke that. Yeah, rebuke that. Get behind me, Judas. So that's the case. Let's see. Annie L. Muldrow says, how can communities intervene early to keep youth out of prison in the first place? Well, trust and believe. And next time when we come on, like I said, I felt this so passionately that I didn't give any shouts out. I went to a thing yesterday with the organization called Reaching Out From Within that I was a part of while I was on the inside. That has helped me through my transition. They have symposiums. They have people out there that are willing to help the youth and to help the communities. But if you don't think that the children can be helped, then why would you even seek to try to have those? Build it yourself. Make something that intervenes with the community, as we're trying to do here, to try to stop and save some of my life right now. You know what I'm saying? If not now, then when? If not who, then excuse me, let me say that right. If not now, then when? If not us, then who? So we have to be the ones that step out and put our necks on the line to try to help these little girls. Even if you have to do it from behind your car, like, hey, little brother, pull your pants up and speed off or whatever, And that's so funny because that's one of the lessons that I had to learn. Pull your pants up, sag, pull your pants up. And it's cool to sag and all that kind of junk until them popos get behind you. Got to run with your heat or your chopper or whatever you call your stick, your switch. You got to run with that and your illegal contraband, and you fall down, you look, and you get caught. So just have to say a word sometime. It says by paying close attention to them. That's right. You pay attention to them, and you just speak out to them. And there's lots of us. And please believe this is not the first person that's ever come with this type of conversation. There's so many men, especially those coming from the inside that have a caring heart. There's people in the community. There are people that are doing something. There are people that are trying to help to gather the youth. I have a brother by the name of Larry Wilkins. He and I used to be cellmates and everything. He's doing so much with conflict resolution in the children. Eventually, when the time comes for a podcast, I would love to have him on. In fact, I spoke with him or contacted and messaged him earlier today to get some understanding about what I should be speaking to the youth about. And that's one of the major things we both agreed on. You're so simple to be disrespected. Everything is disrespect. But don't allow, again, something that you consider to be disrespect to allow you to disrespect yourself and end up inside of a cage. That's basically all that I'm saying. So again, far as shots out and far as me putting the plug in to where to find me, this will be done, at a later date and everything. But I just was feeling so much that I wanted to reach out and say. I mean, somebody put on, you're preaching now, whatever. I'm trying to preach, try to reach, trying to teach, whatever the case may be, however you want to coin it and say it. That's what I'm gonna do, because somebody, stuck their arm out, stuck me under their wing. They taught me and raised me, not even just in prison, but before. And again, I was the fool. Don't be a fool. Don't let somebody make you a fool, young men and women, because you're upset and because you're angry, because they have a place for fools. And sometimes, mistakes can cost you your entire, most of your life. So I'm going to have to, come to call this to the draw this to a close. I apologize for speaking fast. I apologize for not necessarily, getting things done the way I possibly should have done, but it just was on my heart, and I just felt that I needed to share that. So that's what we did. So thank you for tuning in. Thank you for your time. Thank you for everything that you've done to, help me with, making my voice be out here to be possible. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for all those things. But now has come my time, and I must close out, because people will be trying to, get at me because I went too far over. So we'll close this out with the theme music. I hope that you gathered from something from you. If you didn't get something from this, then I blame me for you not being able to get something from it, and not because you just were unable to get something from it. So thank you very much again.
Yeah. It's Con-crete University. Know before you enroll. Ended up in the penitentiary. Listen up, the Dean XL, be free. And you will know before you go. Never have to see how prison can really be. Listen, learn, and practice consistency. This is prison literacy. Yeah.
Take a sweat. Take a sweat. Take it any chop. Take it any stick, switch, big sweat.
Yeah, this is prison literacy. Yeah.
Thank you.